Well, how's it going, Smeggers, and welcome back to my channel. It's Kip Bowman here. Thank you for joining me on another video. So, I'll show you what I got today. I got to read to you. Some of you are quite familiar with television adapted into novels. So, I'll show what I got to read to you. Some of you not heard of it before. So, I'll show it to you. Just bear with me a second. And I'd like to thank you for subscribing to my channel. To help my channel growing. I really appreciate you guys. I hope you enjoyed watching my videos. It was so amazing, guys. I thank you ever so much. But I always do my best what I can because I have busy stuff to do. That's for personal reasons. So I have got Red Dwarf Backwards. This is based on one of normal season 3 episode called Backwards. So, as you know, I'm such a huge fan of Red Dwarf because it's absolutely spanking funny. And I think it's published by Penguin Books. Is some of you quite familiar with Red Dwarf, a British science fiction comedy? Yep, it was broadcasted by BBC back in 1988. So, should read to you guys. So, please beware any profanity during this video. So, relax, sit back and enjoy. Okay, let's have a go. The first section is Prologue. Every good boy. Every good boy deserves a favour. Arnold J. Rimmer, age 7. And almost a quarter is attempted to concentrate on his music notation lesson. For reasons they elude his young mind, it is vital important for him to master the piano. More important than anything. More important. Even than concealing from his brothers a secret location of his dead spiders and regularly things collection. Life or death, important, and must commit to a memory of names of notes on musical stave, EGBDF, using the time-honoured monarch. Every good boy deserves a favour. He's concentrating as hard as he can. His little face is bunched up like a constipated pig at a travel festival. But he's got a problem. Young Arnold has. And this is a problem. He knows he's going to fail. He has no ear for music. He has no talent for piano, but then again, he has no talent for anything. The only thing he's good at is letting his parents down. That's easy for Arnold J. Rimmer, age 7, and almost a quarter is a breeze. Every good boy disappointed father, outside in the warm and real glow of Jupiter magnified. The loose plexiglass dome, Arnold's brother, rope and hollow up and down the garden. They're probably not having as much fun as they sound like they are having. They are exaggerating their bellows of enjoyment to taunt him. They knew he had liked to be out there with them, even though he'd be teased and tortured, even though he'd be a butt of their cruel, boyish jokes. He had rather be staked out on the grass and smeared with a marmalade to attract a poisonous insect than be stuck in the hot, stuffy steady, gripping his elementary music notation book with a sweaty little hands. So they yell and laugh in a taunting parody of a childhood pleasure in the possibly perfect summer afternoon to tweak his discomfort to the maximum level, and, in young Arnold's opinion, it's not even unfair. That have earned their fun. He has not. Every goodbye deserved favour. His brothers, you'll see, excel at things. They are all, in their own ways, excellent boys. I don't find it a hideous struggle just to be a notch below average. But his mother won't give up on him. She still believes he can excel. She's convinced he has this hidden talent for the music. He's got to be music, because there's nothing else left for his talent to be hiding behind. But it's so deeply hidden, this musical ability, that even Arnold can't find it. His musical talent is in deep cover, and frustrating thing is, if he can only master the piano, everything will be alright. Would that be too much to ask? If he could just turn out to have a fledgling talent of a Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, then he could relax a little. Then his parents could have something to be proud about. And he really needs something good to hang on to right now, because although the precious details are not clear to his 7 and almost a quarter years old brain, he is keenly aware that something very bad indeed could very possibly be about to happen. His school report has been a disaster. In a class of 37 pupils, Arnold has been ranked 36. 36, half of 37. It is a worst ever. The third time, he's always managed to hover just above a shame ignominy in the very late 20s. But his term, they have started a remedial teaching for slow pupils, and young Arnold has been overtaken by the Spassies and Donalds and Thickies. Even Trevor Treasure Biswick, who spends fully 7 hours of every school day attempting to learn how to masturbate through the hole in his pocket, has exceeded him in scholastic achievement. Arnold J. Rimmer is now a second worst pupil in his class. He ranks only Dennis Filbert, who smells of bread and margarine, spots a plaster over one lens of his spectacles, and has a behavioural problem which results in his turning blue and losing consciousness. If anyone tries to speak to him next time, Dennis Filbert will be in a special school, and Arnold will be a bottom for class 36 out of 36. Of course, he has tried to conceal a distinct of his failure from his parents by altering his figures to make it appear he's come 36th out of 87. He might have succeeded too if he hadn't used yellow crayon. His father has punished him excessively cruelly, and all the horrors Arnold had imagined on the long walk home from school on the last day of term, beyond tears, clutching the damning document with his cruel counterfeiting, had not prepared him for his actual punishment. This Was the punishment? No, nothing. His father has done nothing at all. He has read the report over the supper table and said absolutely diddly sip. And he has said slippery squad since. Young Arnold has committed on an offence beyond the punishment, literally unspeakable. Arnold screwed his eyes so tightly together they hurt. Red patterns swirl in the darkness. He wishes there were somewhere he could put the shame, somewhere he could put it down for a while, like a huge overstuffed suitcase to stop him hurting. When he opened his eyes, his mother is standing over him. She is holding a letter. Arnold can see the skull crest on the letterhead, although no one has spoken directly to him about it. He knows what it is. It's about being kept down. He has overheard his mother on the phone arguing with his teachers about it. He has surprised his brothers whispering in hundreds about it. Being kept down, it's something happened only to creme de la creme of thickies, to the thickest of the thick, to the spaciest of the space. It means to you, say, in Junior C, while the rest of the class moves up to Junior B, and for the rest of your school life, in perpetuity, forever, you would be the 1 year older than your classmates, who are all aware that you have been kept down because you are not just any old Donald, but you are not darnest of all. Darnest who have dared to done. His mother has pleaded with his teachers to spare him of his shame. This letter, in his mother's cold hands, contains this false decision, and with a prescience surprising in his boy's age. Arnold is unaware that his contents will affect his life forever. Every good boy deserves failure. So far, the action of his novel follows on directly from Better Than Life. Following a time dilation accident, Dave Lester becomes an old man and dies. His crewmates plant his body on a version of Earth when time is running backwards, and he returns to life. They arrange to meet him 36 years later, but souvenir shop at Niagara Falls. Chapter 1 refers Part 1 refers universe. We cannot choose what we are, yet we are. But some of the choices. Rimmer tried to smile charmingly, which was always a mistake for him. He had a vulture's smile, perhaps because he practiced it so little, and it always provoked the opposite reaction from the one he intended. "Excuse me, miss," he tried to say, but he came mangled as if he were sucking in Bulgarian words rather than imitating English ones. Kryten had reprogrammed his speech units against Rimmer's better judgment, and he had absolutely no confidence that anyone would understand him ever again. A girl behind the souvenir shop counter looked at him curiously, and he shook her head. "No, I'm sorry," she said. "I haven't seen anyone of a description. Rimmer screwed up his features so his face resembled a paper bag full of paper bags. What was this silly girl babbling about? He tried again. I'm looking for a short, ugly man, covered in grin, unspeakable personal hygiene, and a body odor problem that could wilt a giant redwood. He offered a dog-eared photograph of Lister. The girl glanced down at the snapshot and then looked up him and smiled. Good morning, sir. How can I help you? She smiled again, and then she focused her attention somewhere else. Rimmer watched her for a while, his frustration mounting. He tried to attract her attention again with a couple of subtle throat clearings, but the girl was watching the news on her little kit below counter TV and chose to ignore him. The news was momentous, suddenly inexplicably, and without any warnings whatsoever. And this desperate warning, wherein nations of Eastern Europe had put down their weapons and formed a giant conglomerate of a country called Soviet Union, the people of East Germany, as it was now to be called, were joyously erecting a huge ugly wall with stones culled from every corner of Earth, which would keep them in and kept everyone else out. There was a genuine street party feel as they went about their business. A secret police service with almost unlimited powers was being formed to enforce an exciting new system of communism, which hitherto had only been half-heartedly attempted in China, and to lesser degree in Cuba. The world is changing, monumentally changing, and this weirdo tourist with a metallic edge branded to his forehead was carving for her attention. With all the subtle aplomb of a chain smoker walking up in the morning unable to locate his lighter, well, frankly, he could wait. Finally, Rimmer gave up. He glanced quickly over his shoulder, took a deep breath, and maneuvered his way through a crowd of rolling tourists trying to look as nonchalant as is possible to look real when you are walking backwards. He rounded the corner. Thankfully, the corridor was deserted. He walked forwards past the lavatory and stopped outside the unmarked door. It's all right, he said to the door. Coast clear. There was a sound of a bolt sliding at the door cracked open. Kryten looked up and down the corridor conspiratorially. Hustled Rimmer quickly into the cleaner's closet and closed the door. Any luck? Rimmer shook his head. Not a bean. Kryten checked his internal chronometer. 9:30. Almost 25 past. In less than half an hour, the Bulgaria false souvenir shops would probably start and open up to the tourists for the morning. He collected nervously. He must be somewhere you can have looked properly. Rimmer's nostrils contracted imperiously. I did the best I could, given I was walking backwards anywhere and don't have ice in my buttocks. He could be anywhere around here. No, we arranged to meet him at the souvenir shop. Yes, at noon. We are over 2 hours late. Rimmer looked away confused. Or 2 hours early, whichever. And there's a half a dozen souvenir shops scattered all over the place. I thought we should stop looking. It's our best shot. Kryten squealed. I can't go there, sir. I did attract too much attention. Rimmer studied the mechanoid's plastic features and tried to imagine he was looking at them for the first time. It was true, Kryten. Couldn't pass a human before even the skimpiest scrimtony. He looked as if anyone had dealt his head 7 or 8 vicious blows with a butter paddle, leaving flat surface and sharp edges where a normal face would curve. You be fine, Rimmer, lied. We'll invent some sort of cover story. Like what? I don't know. We'll say you took your car to the crusher and forget to get out. No. Gnog, shy, missed, had toe. The cat chipped in. Hit silp, no miss, neck. He looked from Kryten to Rimmer and back again. The mixture of exasperation and confusion. Rimmer closed his eyes and muttered a wary precision. This was insane. He was a hologram, incapable of touching anything, stuck in the cleaning closet beside Niagara Falls on a bizarre manufacturing of a planet Earth, where time was running in reverse with a cat, who could barely understand the words anyone said, where they were speaking forwards, and a mechanical man who looked like Herman Mustard's stump double. What had he done in the previous life to Warren, a comma of belonging to his dream team from Hell's own sub-pit? We've got to get out of here, he hissed with a considerable passion. All right, Kryten conceded. Perhaps we can pick up some kind of disguise for me. Good plan. Rimmer smiled humorously. Maybe we could squeeze you into the full-length boob tube and tell everyone you're a giant rubber-tipped pencil. Kryten whispered the plan to the cat in forward speak, which was, of course, now backwards for Rimmer. It gave him a headache just thinking about it. On a nod from a cat, Kryten pulled back the bolts, opened the door and peered along the corridor. Satisfied, he signalled for them to exit. Kryten hunched as close to the wall as possible, with Rimmer on the outside and the cat to the front. They tried unconvincingly to look like a group of casual tourists. The souvenir store in the mill was deserted. Now, from behind the door at the back of the shop, there was a strange suction sound. At first, Kryten assumed it was a shop for girl shop, halfway until he realized that, given the vagaries of his reverse universe. A vacuum cleaner would make a blowing noise as it distributed filth around the floor. He guessed the sound was coffee upcolating. That was good. The girl would probably be away a few minutes. Emptying the percolator and spooning the coffee grounds into their container. He purred behind the counter, searching for something he might use as a disguise, while Rimmer and the cat kept a lookout for Lister. The only remotely useful thing Kryten found there was a shop assistant's makeup bag. He toyed with the idea of painting himself a fake moustache with her mascara's brush, but realised after a few seconds of contemplation that a loss of reality would not permit him to adopt even this merge. And let's face it, Lucy's disguise, given that time, was now committed to flowing upstream. The purpose of mascara brush would be to remove the makeup, not apply it. He rubbed his temples with cubed fingertips. This whole expedition was turning out to be more difficult than he did imagine. Then something very bad caught his attention. On the shelf below the counter, miniature TV was blowing its backwards babble through a dangling earpiece. A quiz show where contestants competed to give money to the host was interrupted by the news flash. Behind the news reader, there was a police photograph of a cat. He looked up, alarmed. The cat was standing by, sitting in a shop window, staring out at the thinning crowd. Kryten glanced back down at the screen. To his horror, the cat's image was replaced by the still of Lister. He strained to hear what a newscaster was saying, but only managed to make out the single word. The fuse flash disappeared, and the quiz show returned. The word Kryten had been able to make out was murder. Back of the police van stank of vomit and stale urine, which would no doubt be inserted of furious drunks and druggies. Once the morning drew to the close and graveyard shift, Lister shifted uncomfortably on the hard bench. The handcuffs were pinching his wrist. Wickedly, he fiddled on his groin, where the paint belonged to the crescendo, and his left ear was starting to throb redly. There were two policemen opposite him, and one either side, all of them glowering at him relentlessly. Despite all this, Lister was feeling pretty damn good. The last 8 years or so had been fairly hellish, and at his elder was almost over. Without warning, the place on his left slammed palm of his hand against the side of Lister's head, which stopped the throbbing and returned his hearing to normal. Better and the better. Lister spotted some fleshy chewed gum on the floor of a fan. He stumbled his foot onto it, deftly flicked up into his mouth, and began chewing the red contentedly, each movement of his jaw infusing the gum with more and more spearmint flavour. He heard a distinct rubble and glanced through the dark, reinforced glass of her fan's rear window. He could see mist from her falls and fast foamers of white water cascaded up the mountainside. Almost home, he leaned his head against the side of the fan. With a good luck and following wind, he was less than 24 hours away from his first truly satisfying bombing movement in the best part of half a century. He sighed happily. Did anyone anywhere enjoy the more sumptuous prospect? The cat was belonging to the film was extremely quizzy. He was watching the fat man pick bits of pale flesh out of his mouth with a fork, which he was then sculpting neatly around the skeleton on his plate. The cat glanced over the table at Rimmer and Kryten to share his disgust with them, but they were both intent on a gobbledly gook conversation. He looked around the cafeteria for less distressing view and settled on the young woman across the room, who was slowly injecting him a long bacon roll from between her lips, which he managed to find out mildly erected. Rimmer was locking his palm to his forehead to conceal his hologramic age. His elbow resting on the table, they had selected the gloomiest corner of the table in the room, but Rimmer still felt his self-consciousness unexposed. That's all you heard murder, not who murdered who, or how, or where. Kryten shook his head. I'm afraid not, sir. But Cat's definitely involved. I think we must assume so. His likeness appeared alongside Mr. Lister's in a bulletin. Rimmer looked over at the cat, who, for some reason, was licking his lips lustily to his attention, which was undeniability, the least of his attributes focused elsewhere. We've got to find out more. Can we get the hold of a newspaper? With respect, I don't think that would do any good. Whatever it is that happened is going to happen fairly soon. The newspapers that reported it will have already been wiped at the presses this afternoon. Rimmer's forehead screamed as he bent his mind to concepts. He agreed eventually. Yes, that sounded about right. In this place, people would take their papers to news agent or leave them out on the steps for paper boys, who would then send them back to the publishers. Then the printers would wipe the paper clean, and thousands of journalists will be liberate the news stories from computers. The fresh paper will get taken away and turned into rainforests. Rimmer shook his head in amazement. That would make the tabloid press barons here. There were trees and heroes, their lives dedicated to the destruction of merely mouthed scandal mongering, mild pornography, and reformulation of a planet. Whereas someone like, say, San Francis of, as I say, would be hated and reviled in this universe, had been a pretty minded like sadistic who went around maiming small animals. A waiter came up to the table and sat down a dirty cup, quarter filled with a cold, stale coffee. Just do my job, friend. He lapsed indignantly. Then he took a grimy, damp cloth and used to spread tiny bits of food debris and cigarette ash all over the table service. "Oi!" Rimmer protested. "What the Smegging are you doing?" The waiter smiled and "good morning" brightly, and minced off backwards. "Weak foul toe, dig out, tug, fifth," the cat said. "Ginnets?" So said. "Oot, Hashi, Zip, Ziff." What was he blabbing about? This place is too disgusting," Kryten translated. "We've got to get out of here." Second, thirded. Emotion carried Rimmer stood. "If we go now, we could make it back to the bug before morning fall. Or whatever the hell it is that happened here." We can't go without Mr. Lister." "Why not? We kept our appointment in good faith. If he can't be bothered." You don't understand, sir. This place is lethal to him. If we leave him here, he's going to carry out getting younger. His body will start to shrink. In a few years, you have to go through puberty again. Backwards. Can you imagine that? His puberty hairs will attack into his body. His canals will suddenly rise. And he found himself in the soprano section of a school choir. He carried on growing smaller and stupider until observation finally he forced his little fat blow screaming body into his mother's room, where he will spend 9 months struggling to split himself into a spermatozoa and of them, and he will end up his days swimming around in a spurt as a sperm in someone's testicle sack. Rimmer was surprised to find himself snowing in a distaste. "Well, I agree, it's not a very pleasant way to go, but he's brought on himself, was supposed to be here. He'll come. And if he doesn't, what about us? Oh, what about the cat? For all we know, he's about to get murdered." Kryten shook his head. "I think not. Logic dictates if someone was going to kill him here, we had to have arrived dead." Again, Rimmer stopped in his tracks, while mould over the topsy-turvy logic of his explorating universe. "All right, fine." He looked at the cafeteria clock. "It's 9:15. We've given him till 8:30. Agreed." Kryten stood. At the time, the full souvenir shop would no longer be open in any case, and they would have to devise a new stratagem. It had taken them just over 5 hours to hike down from a spot where they had concealed the rebuilt Starbug. It would take even longer to get back. Travelling uphill, they had until midnight to effect their takeoff. After that, the conjunction of the planets would render their journey out of the solar system impossible for some considerable time. If they missed their flight window, they would all be marooned here, which didn't bear thinking a bit about. So long as they found Lister inside the next few hours, they will be safe. That will be time enough, Kryten. Suggest we had to head back to the mile area. He translated for the cat, and three of them trooped out backwards. As they passed the coat stand by the exit, Kryten discreetly borrowed a yellow sagile. Backing out into the corridor, slipped it over his head, and took the strings of the hood tight around his face. His guilt circuits almost went into meltdown in response to committing the theft, but he managed to override the intense pain by concentrating on his primary directive, which was to ensure Lister's safety. There was a huge future problem which Kryten couldn't bring himself to confess to Rimmer. He was trying to carry a portable power pack that generates with his hologramic image. Unfortunately, he neglected to foresee that in the physics of the reverse universe, the batteries would be recharging, not discharging, in slightly less than an hour. They would overload, and while Kryten couldn't exactly predict the consequences, he concluded that whatever did happen wouldn't be entirely beneficial to Rimmer's well-being. Okay, so I'll stop there for page 221. So I hope you're both of your Smeggers listen to when I read Red Dwarf Backwards, because I hope your Smeggers loved it. I guess you will find them interesting. I think it's so different to episodes of Red Dwarf Series 3 episode Backwards. I remember the episode when Kryten and Rimmer travel through time hole set the Earth 1993. I think Red Dwarf is such a Smegging brilliant science fiction comedy television series. It was broadcast by BBC, and it was created by Doug Layer and Rob Grant. So I'm Swami Kibber. I'll be back with breakfast, and so thank you ever so much, and I'll see you all Smegheads. I will continue to read more Red Dwarf Backwards on the next few chapters. Okay, so see you Smegheads later, and have a nice day. Please stay tuned.